Joining me now from USA Today is Tyler Dragon to talk about some stuff going on in the NFL. No shortage of headlines, even heading into spring. Hey, Tyler, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing
I'm
today?
good, thank you. Let's start with the headline. I mean, the headline that we're all sick of. This Aaron Rodgers saga, I thought was going to come to a close when he told Pat McAfee that he planned on playing for the Jets, but for whatever reason, this thing cannot get across the line. What do you think is going on?
Yeah, the Packers and the Jets are really talking and negotiating over trade compensation. That's what's holding this thing up. And really, the Packers might have the upper hand here in leverage because Aaron Rodgers has said publicly and told really the whole world that he wants to play for the New York Jets. So the Packers are saying, okay, come get him. They have publicly also said that they're ready to move on to Jordan Love. So it's kind of a interesting situation, an unprecedented situation, really, when you have people on both sides saying they are ready for a divorce, and for the Packers and the Jets' sake, they know two people at the dance for this Aaron Rodgers thing. So I really think it'll probably come down to possibly leading up to the draft or maybe right after the draft. But it's really going to come down to when the two sides agree to trade compensation. That's what's holding this thing up. I don't see it happening in the next couple days or so, but it's going to eventually happen. They're just delaying the inevitable, really.
Well, that was the first thing that occurred to me when I read your latest update on USA Today. And the Jets, who are supposed to be in control of this thing, bringing on a new employee, find themselves, I think, in a precarious position here. I mean, are they stuck between a rock and a hard place with how big this thing has gotten?
Well, really, the Packers are in control of this thing because they have Aaron Rodgers under contract, and they have the leverage because they know, the whole world knows, that the Jets want Aaron Rodgers. And so they have the asset that the Jets want. And the Jets have to come up with a way to entice Green Bay enough to trade Rodgers. Now, is that going to happen? When is that going to happen? I think it is going to happen. But as you said, the Jets are kind of in a strange situation because they have been so public with their pursuit of Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers had been public at his desire to play in New York. However, it's the Packers that hold all the cards, really, and have the say power because they have Aaron Rodgers under contract. But I do think cooler heads are going to prevail, and this situation is going to get resolved eventually. It's just a matter of when.
In the meantime, Tyler, you've got teams elsewhere that are making significant improvements to their roster. Miami has gotten really creative. Are they a contender?
Yeah, I really like what the Dolphins have done, especially with Jalen Ramsey, that trade with the Los Angeles Rams. You pair him with Xavier Howard. You have Holland at safety, Chubb at defensive end. That defense is looking really legit. I think it's going to just to be dependent on how healthy Tua Tagovailoa could be for that offense. We all know that he's had concussion concerns, especially last year, and really he's had injury concerns his entire career, dating back to college during his time at Alabama. So if he can stay healthy and on the field, the Dolphins have a good enough roster to compete in the AFC. Now, are they the best team in the AFC East? I still have a slight nod to the Buffalo Bills. And then when the New York Jets get Aaron Rodgers, that's a force to be reckoned with too. So the AFC East might end up being the best division in football. And we haven't even mentioned the New England Patriots yet, with Bill Belichick, the best coach arguably in NFL history. You would have to think Mac Jones is going to up his play a little bit, and with another season of experience under his belt. But when I look at this Miami Dolphins team, yes, they are going to be a legitimate contender in the AFC as long as Tua can stay healthy, because that defense is looking really, really good on paper.
I'm trying to figure out how much better the Jets will actually get when they bring Aaron Rodgers into the fold. I mean, their defense played so well last year, and clearly the problem was at the position that they're trying to address. Depending on what they have to give up or what they're doing here to make this trade happen, I mean, do you really believe that the addition of a veteran quarterback who, let's be honest, we've seen some of that arm productivity start to slide a little bit just because he is as old as he is he really enough to make them a legitimate contender in that division?
Even as Aaron Rodgers is pushing 40, he's a significant upgrade from Zach Wilson. I mean, Zach Wilson might be one of the worst quarterbacks in the entire NFL. He looked in over his head in his starts last season. He was erratic throwing passes. Really, the game was way too fast for him. He just didn't look comfortable at all. And Aaron Rodgers, yes, he might not be the Aaron Rodgers of old. His arm strength might not be at its peak. His, ability to maneuver around in a pocket might not be, vintage Aaron Rodgers. However, he is tremendously way better than Zach Wilson at quarterback. I really do think it is going to be a significant upgrade from the quarterback position. And if you plug Aaron Rodgers in with this New York Jets team, with the reigning offensive rookie of the year at wide receiver and Garrett Wilson, you have a legit defense. I really do think the New York Jets are playoff contenders, certainly.
Let's pick it up with Roger Goodell's rumored contract extension. I'm curious to hear your assessment of the job that he's done as commissioner. What do you think he's done well, and where do you think he's come up woefully short?
Well, he's definitely made the NFL a whole lot of money during his time as commissioner. I think all the owners would vouch for that and say that he has done that job well. Been, protected the league, protect the shield. That's really the NFL's motto behind closed doors, is do everything humanly possible to protect the shield and make the National Football League money. And Roger Goodell has certainly done that with the billions and billions of dollars the NFL is worth. Now, the thing that Goodell has come up woefully short, and it's partly his fault, partly the owner's fault, is the lack of diversity across the National Football League. And you can go from, the NFL corporate offices to the NFL media group to, of course, the sidelines, with the lack of diversity in head coaches and assistant coaches. The players on the field are over 70% African-American, but you only have 3 African-American head coaches. And, there's just a lack of diversity across the National Football League by and large, and that is from the top down. And so I think Roger Goodell has had a hand in that. And of course, the owners have had a hand in that too. And it's an issue that still plagues the National Football League.
When you spend time covering the league, you quickly realize that Roger Goodell, works for the owners, collectively as a group. That's his job. When you go to the NFL owners meetings, you see it, you feel it. Part of his responsibility is to carry out what they want to see happen, it feels like. And so when you talk about issues where the NFL needs drastic improvement, diversity, minority coaching, the way that they handled what happened in Washington with Dan Snyder, some of the issues around violence and athletes, all of those things really reflect poorly on an ownership group that hasn't really taken the initiative in some instances to make legitimate change. How much should we blame and kind of criticize and scrutinize Roger Goodell for those, those shortcomings? And how much do we need to say, well, this is NFL ownership that is unwilling to make necessary changes to make this a better league?
It's both. Just as you said, Roger Goodell speaks for the owners. The owners pay Roger Goodell, and the owners are essentially his boss. But he's a commissioner of the National Football League, so he has power that he can will to. And that starts in the corporate offices. There's a lack of diversity, at the NFL offices in New York and in LA in the NFL media group. So he can be in charge of that, and as well keep on speaking up for the players and all the diversity champions that keep on yelling and shedding light on the fact that there aren't enough minority coaches around the National Football League. There are not enough minority GMs or any executives. We still don't have an African American owner as well in the National Football League. So you look across the league, there's just a flagrant lack of diversity on the sidelines and in the suites. But when you look on the field, you see African Americans all over the place. But it should be a direct reflection on the sideline and in the suites as well.
Yeah, there's no question. On the flip side, if there is one bright spot under his or aside from the fact that you mentioned just the financial gains, which is the bottom line that owners really care about, you have seen something of an expansion of the global footprint of the league under his leadership. And, the NBA for a long time was really credited with global expansion, getting into Asia and Africa and some of these areas where the sport didn't exist. And they really did bring the game global. The NFL, what kind of job do you think they've done in not necessarily catching the NBA, because I know it's not a foot race, but just their commitment to also working on a global expansion of the game?
Yeah, you see the game really expanding in countries like Mexico. Over in Europe, you have had games in Germany this past season. You had games in London over the past few seasons. So Roger Goodell does deserve credit in expanding the game internationally. I think what hurts the NFL is there's not, any type of tackle football over in Europe. The game is growing a little bit in Mexico, but, as much eyeballs as you can get internationally, the better for the game, more money for the game, the more reach the game has. And you have players that aren't just known around the country, but known worldwide now. Before Tom Brady retired, he's still a worldwide international name. You have players like Patrick Mahomes, who's an international football name. And before 10, 15, 20 years ago, you couldn't quite say that about the players in the NFL. But nowadays, when you have games in Mexico City, when you have games, in London and Germany, you're really growing the game. And Roger Goodell has a huge, huge, huge credit in that.
I just want to ask you a couple more questions inside the league, and then I'll get you out of here because I've kept you too long already. I loved seeing Cam Newton throw at Auburn's pro day, doing it for his brother, he said, but also maybe a little bit of an underdog sort of mentality there. Watch what I can do. It seems like, and I mean, you tell me, it looks like he might be earnestly trying to get back in the league after a year away. I mean, what did you make of that sort of throwing display?
Yeah, and I also saw what he said on social media. There aren't 32 quarterbacks better than him in the NFL. And quite frankly, he's right. The Washington Commanders have Sam Howell. He's better than Sam Howell right now. I think Cam Newton could start for the Atlanta Falcons. I think he could start for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If we all saw what Baker Mayfield did last season, it leaves a lot to be desired. So there are a few teams Cam Newton could start for right now. And by all reports, I was not at the pro day, but I saw film and I knew people that were there, not only scouts, reporters, but league personnel. And he threw pretty well. He had some vintage Cam Newton type throws and moments during, that workout session. And I would not be surprised if teams came calling just to mull his interest and his commitment to be able to play. Now, do I think teams are going to be clamoring for him to be a starting quarterback? No, but he's good enough to be on an NFL roster. And if I'm the Commanders or if I'm the Atlanta Falcons and I'm not sure on my starting quarterback, which they should not be, I would definitely call Cam Newton.
What about Lamar Jackson, who by all accounts, I mean, should in theory be a starting quarterback on somebody's team? It seems like there hasn't been the interest level that some that are really in his camp or big fans of him have expected. What do you see here? What do you think the future is for him?
So owners don't want to set the precedent of guaranteed contracts north of $230 million, similarly to what Deshaun Watson got. And that was being reported that is what Lamar Jackson wanted. And owners across the league, they do not want to pay Lamar Jackson that much because they know that's going to affect teams and owners this year, next year, and for years to come, because then you have Joe Burrow's contract coming up. You have Justin Herbert's contract coming up. Is Tua going to get paid? Is Jalen Hurts? So if you give Lamar Jackson a fully guaranteed contract that is north of 230 million, then Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert and players that I just named, they are going to command that same as well. And you're really going to reset the market. So they want Deshaun Watson's deal to be somewhat of an anomaly, and they want Lamar Jackson to come down in his price a little bit. And, I really do think he will eventually, and he is going to stick around in Baltimore because really the Ravens have invested a lot in Lamar Jackson. Their whole offense is designed around him, that city, that team. He's the face of the franchise. And I do think the Ravens, they'll sit down with Lamar Jackson and they'll come upon an agreement that's in the $200 million, guaranteed neighborhood. And I believe that Lamar Jackson will be sticking around in Baltimore. But right now, the situation is kind of dicey. And, the two sides are at odds. But I do think they're going to come together eventually.
Just quickly, would that be a fair price for a quarterback as talented as him?
$200 million guaranteed. I do think that is a fair price for Lamar Jackson. It's more than what Aaron Rodgers got. It's more than Russell Wilson got. So I do think it's a fair price for him.
When you look at what Chicago's done, I feel like it's tough to shake the Bears stigma because you just never want to say like, wow, they could maybe be contenders, but they have been pretty active in free agency and made some moves. I mean, how seriously should we take them heading into next season?
Man, they're right up there in the NFC North. I really love the addition of DJ Moore. You get Justin Fields, a number one target. You had a feeling that they were going to trade down from that number one pick, and they got a whole lot for it. It's headlined by DJ Moore, and then, of course, the draft picks. And then you look at what they did at linebacker. Chicago's known to have standout linebackers. You get Tremaine Edmonds from the Buffalo Bills, and you plug him right there in the middle. And they got a few other players in free agency as well. They have been very active, and they have upgraded their team in a tremendous way. And they still have draft picks that they can upgrade their team as well. So I really like what the Bears are doing. They're certainly a team on the rise, but I'm very, very happy for Justin Fields because he got a number one legit wide receiver, and that will help him out tremendously.
Just before I let you go, we're about 5 weeks out. What are you thinking about as it relates to the draft? Which team is most intriguing to you in terms of picks that they have, team or teams? I mean, what is most exciting to you?
Well, I want to see at that top of the draft. I think that's going to affect, obviously, the entire rest of the draft. What are the Carolina Panthers going to do with that number one pick? Is it going to be CJ Stroud, or is it going to be Bryce Young? And then you already know that number two pick, they're going to get the quarterback that the Panthers didn't select. And then the Cardinals, they're in the bird's eye seat, and they'll probably be selecting the best defensive player in the draft. So the top of the draft is really going to shape and affect what the other teams are going to do. But I'm really, really excited to see where these quarterbacks land, because there are a lot of quarterback needy teams at the top of the draft.
Do you have a opinion one way or the other who you think the top draft pick should be?
Well, sources have told me that the Panthers are leaning towards C.J. Stroud. And so that it winds up perfectly for the Houston Texans, because they prefer Bryce Young, is what people have told me. So that is going to, be interesting if that stands. And then, you have a team like maybe the Seattle Seahawks who might draft a quarterback. You have teams like the Atlanta Falcons who might be intrigued with quarterback. Even the Detroit Lions. Are you going to draft Anthony Richardson? So there are a lot of intriguing storylines from the quarterback position in this upcoming draft.
Yeah, we've covered about 15% of the league in the last 20 minutes, and I still feel like we could touch on 20 more teams. Tyler Dragon from USA Today, thank you so much for the insight. Fascinating stuff, interesting reporting leading into the draft, and we'll all continue to wait patiently to see what the Jets do with Aaron Rodgers, or the Packers, I should say.
Right, both teams. Yes. Hopefully next time we talk, Aaron Rodgers will officially be on the Jets.
Let's hope so. Thanks very much.